This is FE Peer Review. The date is September the 5th, 2021. What we see, what cameras see. I'll just pause here for a moment, read it if you wish. Mittelwell 531 kilohertz, who often leaves very interesting comments on my videos, left this one today. And there was a little thing in there that really I thought was worth exploring a little further. He says at the end of his comment, "By the way, I always find it strange to talk, quote, what the human eye can resolve if we discuss based on photographs taken on which we could do pixel counting. It has nothing to do with the human eye, but what the camera can resolve based on its sensor pixel density and, for the Rayleigh criterion, also on aperture and wavelength." I responded, "It's so good to be reminded. Whenever we look at photos and videos here on YouTube, this is not what people saw when they took those photos and videos. This is what registered on their cameras. It's so easy to forget that." I thought I would just explore that thought a little bit further, that we see things in the world. We then pick up a camera and take a picture of them. And what we've recorded on the camera is not so much what we saw as what the camera saw. And then we take those images and we upload them onto our computers and we make videos out of them, and they go through all kinds of digital processing. And by the time it actually shows up on the screen, it can be quite far from what we actually saw. And it's just an idea that's worth keeping in mind. It may help us to look more critically and carefully at the images that we see, and be conscious of how the processes involved in creating imagery and sharing it can alter the imagery. And so we need to remember that and factor that back in. You know, it's a sort of an error that needs to be corrected along the way. So I'm going to look at a few things I found in doing research for this video on some nice different websites, and I hope you enjoy this quick little tour. This is the 1972 Blue Marble photo. It was taken from Apollo 17 by, I don't remember which one of the astronauts, but it was taken some 5 hours into their flight after having departed Earth. The photo was taken with a Hasselblad camera. 1972, digital photography was not an option. It was a film camera that used a typical celluloid type film. I don't know, I have not been able to find the brand or type of film that was actually used, but the camera is well documented. I mention that because it's an interesting thing. I just love this photo. So many of us do. One of the things I like about it is that I like analog photography. I like the directness of recording the light onto the film. It's something about it that I like more than digital photography. And this image seems to me like real, like if you looked out the window of a spacecraft, that's what Earth would look like. As opposed to the more recent so-called Blue Marble photo that was done as a collage of photos taken by low Earth orbit satellites. I find the image way too oversaturated. There's a real fad for oversaturated images, and that doesn't appeal to me at all. You go back to the original Blue Marble photo here, and the coloring of it is just like, yeah, that's it. That's what it's all about. And then you find out that actually that's what the guy saw when he looked out the porthole of his spaceship. He was the South Pole was up here, and up, you know, relative being what it was. When he was looking out the window holding the camera in front of his face, up was with the South Pole on top. But when NASA published the photo, they flipped it around so that the South Pole would be on the bottom the way we expect to see it. So here you go. It's manipulation. Yes, it is. That doesn't mean it's wrong. It doesn't mean it's deceptive. It's catering to people's expectations, but it is the Earth as it was photographed by an analog camera. So there's a little something to think about, you know. That's what the guy saw when he looked out the window. And people felt it necessary to rearrange it. Okay. Anyway, that's the Blue Marble. And when I was looking around for pictures to share here, that's when I came across this one, which I had remembered seeing a few months ago as well, the DSCOVR satellite, which takes photos of the Earth, single images that capture the entire surface of the Earth there, well, half of it, And in this one, it was a series of images that managed to catch the moon going by, the backside of the moon facing the camera. I think that's just so spectacular and amazing when they say, why don't they put a camera on the moon and point it at the Earth so that we can see the Earth from the moon? You can say, well, you know, they did even better than that. They put a camera out there beyond the moon, pointing back at both the moon and the Earth. You want to see them both? There they are. And each, well, this is a several images strung together, but each one of those images is a single image of the entire Earth. That's the Epic Discover satellite page on the NASA website. And you can fiddle with the controls here to look at different days, and you can hit play and it'll cycle through the images over the course of the day. There you see it going. There's a little weather pattern happening over here that you can follow as it goes across the screen. And then you have this page at Metabunk, which shows a bunch of different images of the Earth. The 67 image, the 72 image, and the 2015 image were all taken as single images of the entire planet. The 2002 was the composite. But they've all been fiddled with. When you see an image on the screen, even if it was taken with an analog camera, which that one wasn't, but even if you take the 72 image with an analog camera, since then it's been scanned, digitized, and very likely fiddled with in terms of level, saturation, etc. Color rendition is an interesting topic / problem that comes up when we're talking about photography versus the human eye. People who are not familiar with analog cameras, people who maybe are younger and haven't had experience using analog cameras, may not realize that you could get all these different varieties, all these different brands and types of color film, each of which had different color characteristics, and some of them were more suitable to landscape subjects, some of them more suitable to portraiture. This is a little blog entry I found by a photographer who does portrait photography, and he compared 5 different films, analog films, and he shows in the lower half of the upper image here the portion of the portrait uncorrected. So just as it came out of the camera, having used the 5 different types of films, he then did digital corrections to them, to the different films, to try to bring the image towards something like what he thought looked most realistic. And he's emphasizing with this picture at the top the extent to which he has to make corrections. The lower image is also interesting. We have 3 images in each column, and these 3 images are one type of film, in this case Agfa Vista Plus 400, with 3 different exposures. So how you expose the film alters the way it alters the color rendition. And then how you develop the film alters the color rendition. And then post-development work digitally, where if you scan your photograph and then do digital work on it, you can alter the color again. So here we see that the goal might be to try to create as realistic a photograph as possible. But in other words, by realistic, to represent as accurately as possible what the photographer saw at the moment of taking the picture. But in order to achieve that, a whole lot of manipulation of the image has to take place, because the tool imposes its own limitations, and these have to be corrected for. On the other hand, a person might be choosing to not make a realistic image and to be using those digital tools or those tricks in the darkroom to create something else that's not realistic and that is an artistic creation of the photographer. That's fine. You just need to know what you're looking at. I guess that's the big message in this whole video is we can't take photos at their surface value. Even when we're taking the pictures ourselves and think we're taking a picture of what we see, we have to recognize we're not. We're taking a picture of what the camera sees, and we need to look at the imagery, taking that into account. I could go on about Rayleigh criteria and lens distortion and other things. Those are all interesting topics that a lot of people have covered them elsewhere. And if this would become a very long video if I did get into all that. I'll skip all that. I think I've made a point here that people will grasp. I don't need to get into every detail of it. But yeah, photography is manipulation. Digital photography is manipulation. Analog is manipulation. The key thing is to keep that in mind when we're looking at the imagery, and consider it, factor it in. It's something that needs to be conscious. It needs to be, you don't just like go and remove 11 frames from your video, for example, without letting people know in advance what you're doing. All right, that's enough. I'm going to start rambling now if I don't stop. So I'll end it here and wish you all a great day. I'm going to be gone for the next week. But when I'm back, I'll be bright and fresh and bushy-tailed and ready for more. So I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, please do give it a like. Subscribe if you haven't already. Share it with a friend. And remember, leave your comments. I love to read what you guys have to say. Have a great day. Bye-bye.